Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Wings channel, and this week going to get a chart instead of my face for the video on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're on a podcast, well, you're just hearing my voice anyway. Really no need, but I do have a chart for the Cancer Solstice set up for Washington, D.C., and I'll talk a little bit in the second part of the blog this week about the U.S.'s next quarter and what to look at in that solstice chart, but can refer to it for the other things going on this week, too. So remember, the Astrological Wings channel is available on YouTube as a free service. If you have a YouTube account, please become a follower, and then also hit your notifications button so that you know when it comes up every week, which is usually Monday, sometimes Sunday, weekly. Sometimes there's extra blogs too. Also, it's available on all kinds of podcasts through Spotify, and through Buzzsprout, and Spotify is one of the ones that it's on. Apple iPodcasts, Reveal. Just look up the Astrological Winds channel, so you can see on the card down there. And it's also available on Instagram. Become a follower, and if you become a follower on Instagram, sometimes I do some daily stuff, some little blurbs on daily stuff, so you may be missing that. So that's kind of fun. And remember, it is a free service. So the best thing you guys can do for me is to support it, is to pass it along to someone else. And if you need a reading, get in touch with me. The email right here, matthue823@gmail.com. I've been doing readings professionally for 20 years, all types of astrology readings. So get in touch and we'll talk about prices and stuff. Those are really the two best ways you guys can support me. If you do want to give a donation for the service, I'm open to that too. And I am on PayPal and Venmo. My Venmo handle is @Matthew-Lawton, L-A-U-T-E-N. And I'm also on Zelle. All right, so I want to look at the weekly for June 20th through 26th. And there's not a super lot going on this week, but it's also the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's winter solstice. And so I wanted to look at the chart that's up here on the screen and kind of talk about what the U.S. can kind of expect in the next 3 months in the second part of this blog. So if you're not into the political thing at all, and I try to stay neutral politically myself, after the first few minutes or so, you can probably skip that part of the blog. Anyway, so this week, couple bodies change signs. Sun goes into Cancer, Venus goes into Gemini, and those are two of the bigger things. But there's also a bunch of asteroid hits that really tell the situation, a lot of what's going on, I think, with the economics and stuff. And I did mention the one in the monthly of Chiron squaring Ceres, and was really quite right on about, what may happen this month, in all honesty. So talk about them too. But the week starts out Monday and Tuesday with two really positive transits. Monday, Mercury now at full speed, out of shadow, very happy in Gemini over here, is sextile Jupiter. You can see Jupiter up there in Aries, and they have a sextile between them. And this is a really, like I said, positive transit. Jupiter being the greater benefic, and it brings the ability, to see into the future really well, like having a wide scope, a good vision into, or good foresight is another way to say it, and have a really optimistic and positive perspective into looking into the future. And really, with the Mercury part, taking in a lot more information and knowledge, and using that, and turning it into wisdom and valuable type of information that you can use for planning and organizing. And it's a really excellent aspect for business type stuff for the early part of this week. Business opportunities, business plans, getting organizations together, what's the long-term vision, what's the that kind of thing. So that really helpful on those levels, and on personal levels too. Like any kind of traveling you would do early this week will expose you to new people, new knowledge, new cultures, new background, places, and environments that you're not used to, that bring in a larger perspective and can help change the way you look at things and your values, and add wisdom to you. So just a really beneficial one, and it is a sextile. So once again, it's a sextile. It has to be, you have to take the opportunities, or they're just going to pass by. And and you may still have a good day, but you may have missed more potentiality of something greater. And it is a yang sextile too, so that means it's really up to you to initiate. The opportunities aren't going to come to you. You're going to have to create the opportunities by initiating the energy. And with Jupiter in Aries, that's in Gemini, Mercury, rulership of Gemini there, it should not be an issue to tap into that energy. Now, really interesting too, on Tuesday, and you can see it here in the chart again, Venus in Taurus is trine Pluto in Capricorn, retrograde in Capricorn, and at the critical 29th degree also. So this is really about deepening certain relationships. There's like going to be a flow with you and possibly another person or other people, or even maybe a really tight group, where you have shared deep emotional experiences, or shared deep emotions that come up, and are really able to process them and get into a strong focus on that relationship and really bring it into deep, intimate levels. So it's a place where you can actually learn a lot about yourself too, and the way that you work on the inside. So it can be very fulfilling on that level, and you have this need to express these deep feelings that you have, but they're coming out in a way that's not threatening to others. Now, Venus Pluto can also create a strong sexual magnetic pull with another person too. So and the thing is too, a relationship under this trine, a relationship that starts or goes to those levels now. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new one, but it could be a newer relationship, or an existing relationship that's getting deeper. It can have a very profound effect on us from now on, and like really kind of even like change our future in a good way. So it's like there's a lot of intense, passionate energy to tap into, and it can be focused into artistic expression too. In fact, this type of energy is artistic drive, it's artistic passion. It's just like the best stuff really coming out, and in that kind of way. So yeah, there's just this strong power to connect, and even like interestingly enough too, it's a time too of like where if you're a female wanting to become a mom. That energy is very flowing right now too, so very interesting energy going on there. It's interesting too, speaking of Venus, just remember last week Venus conjuncted the North Node and Pallas, all in Taurus. You can see right up here in the chart how they're all together still. And then it was sextiling Neptune, and it still is. And then it was also conjunct Uranus the week before, and then it was going into the square to Saturn. And I really thought, wow, last week they seemed to, the Congress in the United States finally came up with some gun reform bill, and that is so much an expression of that energy, just coming together. Very strong Venus over an idea that has to happen, because the week before things got shaken up by the Venus-Uranus and all the shootings and everything, and now people have got this somber reality thing going on between the Venus square Saturn of the reality of those situations, and then they want to, the sextile to Neptune is showing that they have the opportunity right now, because of that reality, to maybe change some of the ideals and values surrounding that particular issue. So very interesting how that's manifested. Okay, so then Wednesday, Tuesday is when that exact Venus-Pluto trine is, but it's also very active Monday because the moon is on the midpoint between the two of them. So that's a very strong trine on Tuesday that we can work with to deepen relationships. And then the sun goes into Cancer, so that's what this chart is. And just on a more personal notes, really, first of all, of course, in the northern hemisphere, that's when summer begins. In the southern hemisphere, it's when winter begins. But the focus, the overall energy of our focus in life and stuff is a time where it really turns to our family and our home and nurturing and caring for others and getting that too, not only giving that but getting that too. When we feel safe in those places, like our family, we're very optimistic, we feel secure, our family, benefits from that, and we may even widen who is part of that family. But when we're feeling threatened, when Cancer's feeling threatened, it really wants to protect its family, and it can even get into manipulative type behavior in order to do that, and it will tighten the wagons and maybe eject certain people from the family and that kind of thing. But it's all about feeling secure in our needs of what we want, and it's very emotionally driven. Now, right now, because of the way the economy is, and because of a lot of the other issues going on in the world, I think a lot of this Cancer energy is really the circling the wagon thing and tightening things up. And when Cancer doesn't feel like it's getting the things that it basically needs, which are just the basic things of survival, like love and caring from our loved ones, and making sure children are taken care of, making sure we have food, making sure we have a roof over our head, making sure we have the basic needs. When that kind of stuff is feeling threatened, Cancer feels really insecure and really needs emotional support. So when it's not getting that, it will emotionally overreact, thinking, the emotions will bypass the thinking. And so that's the danger of Cancer, if we're falling into this trap of feeling insecure because of the way the economy or the world is or something, then we have a tendency to really, become, wanting to control things around and control our loved ones more and get into this kind of intense energy with that. So, what we really want to do is, try to find that, security with one another in our family zone, in our home zone. And, there's a big connection to the past with Cancer too. So on a bigger level, that's, it can feed into nationalism and, and even on the negative things, start to see division among people rather than, unity among people. So it's really gonna be a little bit of a challenging time, but really, that's what we really want to do with Cancer, is to, give and receive love and the security that comes with that to feel fulfilled. Now, Venus is going to go into Gemini on Wednesday. As you can see, it's real close to it here in the chart, and join Mercury in Gemini. And when Venus is in Gemini, I think she gets really vivacious. She gets it's a very extroverted Venus. She wants to connect with as many people as possible. So she kind of flits from one person to another, kind of like a butterfly, and be very curious about people, but on a superficial level. Just wants a little bit of a taste of everything, and is that really ready to move on. And in fact, if anything, deeper emotions with Venus in Gemini is usually something that she will actually distance herself from. But she's more interested in having her mind stimulated and her ideas stimulated, and just tasting a lot of different flavors, and taking in information from people. And was really into just communication exchanges with people too, being witty, humorous, lively minded. It's also excellent for working with art, with words, so writing, poetry, storytelling, and photos too. Photos is another output of art that Venus in Gemini. The thing that disturbs Venus in Gemini is when people get overly emotional or want to get too deep. It's almost the opposite of that Venus trine Pluto that's earlier in the week, that wants to get really deep. It really doesn't want that. It will actually, go away from that. But it's, and can be, other people can perceive Venus and Gemini energy as being a little bit irresponsible at times, so on a social level. So I mentioned in the monthly that I thought one of the biggest things happening this month was Chiron square Ceres. And so that is exact on Wednesday. And I mentioned in the monthly that I thought, if anything, that the economic issues that were starting to really show their head a few weeks ago, the stock market and inflation and, gasoline even before that, supply chain issues even before that, were all, probably going to come to a head. And that, that the Chiron square Ceres was showing that our resources, economic issues, that, are attached to society, because they're both out there longer term type planets, that were all going to become really big challenges. And that, that the energy of it was there was going to be a lot of tension and stress from people not feeling like they were getting the resources, and then they feel then Chiron comes in and you feel actually literally wounded from not being able to get what you want. And it seems like that's really where things have headed at this point. Now, Venus, the Ceres is in Cancer, interestingly enough. And once again, I just talked about Cancer a lot and how it has those needs. And Ceres is the mothering energy of needing those basic things. And Chiron, here's the square to Chiron right up here, and you can see, that Chiron is a wound that's very difficult to get over. And, and economy and resources are a cyclical thing. They move with population, they move with the way nations are moving and politics in the world, and how resources can be, they're all tied in together now across the world. So, this is something that it's showing us that the way we're looking at doing resources is hurting us, and we keep going back and doing the same thing over and over again. And that and that's what Chiron's showing, that we have to take some leap of faith and change a lot of the way we do things, or we're constantly going to get caught up in these economic cycles that will bring economic pain every few years. So that's really what's going on here, and on an individual level, the old models are not working probably in our lives about the way we do economy. And that may become, we may find out, a lot of self-inflicted wounding that we're doing, and we have to challenge ourselves to find a new way to get to our resources. Now, fortunately, we get some help here. I really think the second hit of Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, sextiling back to Eris, once again is an opportunity to change the way we do things now, the structure of our lives. And in this case, when we look at, these issues with the resources, are there different things that we can do to start to create a new structure, a new form, to bring change into that's beneficial change as a sextile? There's opportunities to maybe seed something now that in the long run will change fundamentally the way we do some of these systems. So that gives us the opportunity, but it's also showing where we're stuck. Saturn retrograde, second exact square to Pallas also at the same time, showing that it's our own ideals that are stopping us from being creative enough in our minds and mentally to be able to express new ones, that we have to let go of old school thoughts and traditions that we're stuck in order to move beyond those things that we're stuck on. And like I said, Saturn in Aquarius still and at those last degrees, but it's retrograde, so like it's gonna it wants that upgrade, but it's like there's still work to be done. Now the last of the 4 aspects this week that are with the asteroids and stuff is Uranus sextiling Jupiter. And you can see very tight, or Uranus is sextiling Ceres, and Juno. So this is gonna give us, it's very tight with Juno, but it's, you can see it's very tight also with Ceres, because Ceres is really at 17 also. So, this is gonna give us the opportunity to come up with new plans of action to nurture and meet our own needs, and that that we have to change the way we look at resources and security, but we can create partnerships with other people, other groups. Otherwise, we're going to continue to choose to suffer, which is that Chiron Ceres thing. But with Uranus involved and Ceres involved, it's really a widespread thing. It's like, it's a transpersonal planet, Uranus, and it's saying human rights are a basic baseline needed for all, that it's a right for all society, and a basic needs should be met. So like, we're going to get a lot of probably like intuitive perceptions about the human condition and in our minds, and what we can do to get through that and bring some change to it, and bring some new ideas into that so that things can change. So very interesting how those 4 asteroid hits are really showing that the economy thing is a self-inflicted wound that we're all doing together, because these are all transpersonal and societal planets, and that we need an upgrade in that area, and that maybe this stress time is a time to look at those ideals and an opportunity to change them, and to change them all together. So very interesting. Now, if we look just real quick at this Cancer chart, the Cancer solstice chart here, very interesting chart. It does describe a lot of what's really going on in the United States right now, in my opinion. And so it really looks like there's going to be a lot of continuation of that. But if you look at, first, you see that Gemini is the ruler, or is rising. So Mercury is the ruler of the chart, and Mercury is strong in Gemini, but it's in the 12th house. in Washington, D.C. And I think that once again, that is showing, yes, there's a lot of information out there, but a lot of it is mis and disinformation. A lot of it is foggy information, like it's secret information, it's hidden information. And so it's really difficult to sort through that. And it makes us feel a little bit like, wired out in trying to figure out what is right and what's not. But like, it's interesting too, because we do have that strong sextile to Jupiter from Mercury, the ruler of the chart. And it's going back to the 11th house, right? And the moon is conjunct to Jupiter too. And the moon is the people, in this chart. And the 11th house is Congress. So it's like, is there opportunities for Congress in this next quarter to really clear up a lot of the misinformation, disinformation, secret information that's confusing a lot of people, and like, even look at like, maybe something like the hearings that are going on, January 6th hearings, and a lot of the stuff behind the scenes is being exposed in Congress to the people. And it's beneficial for the people to see that moon conjunct Jupiter, because that will help them make better choices, perhaps, with, who they elect and who they represent, and, what they want those people to do. But interesting enough, too, the sun is in the first house of the chart, and that's the president himself. And so it shows that, like, the people really don't have faith in what he's saying either, because, he's like, he's part of that Mercury in the 12th house. And also notice too, the sun is square Neptune and Jupiter, and it's beyond the exact square of Jupiter, of Neptune. And I think that shows that his ideals, his values have already, like, the chance for them to have happened have already come and gone. And that, like, and then the sun Jupiter is how he kind of at times kind of goes, that first of all, the square to Jupiter in the 11th house shows his, battle with Congress, which is nonstop. There's complete tension between them. But it also shows how he sometimes doesn't really he doesn't really seem to fully think out what he's saying in detail. And then he says things that are kind of like overly optimistic or overly exuberant, didn't check out the details, and it's easy to find where he's made mistakes. So that shows that's going to continue. And I think, then you see that there's the square to the moon too. So that shows you right there that people don't trust him emotionally. They don't trust that he's going to take care of them. And they're hoping that Congress maybe will do something about that. But like I said, we look at the rest of Congress's house, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's not going to happen either. But very interesting. And then the second house is the house of the resources of the country, and that's where we're really being heard. And notice the Ceres in Cancer is in that house, square that Chiron I just talked about. So that we're being majorly hurt by that. And that goes back to the 11th house, showing that a lot of the policies of Congress, trade policies, things like that, are the things that are hurting the American resources right now. Our assets are, we're watching things fall apart for us economically. And so the moon square to the sun, and the moon ruling the second house show that stress point where people are really upset about the economy, and they're upset with the president. But the reality is, a lot of the trade agreements and stuff come out of Congress. So it's Chiron squaring their Ceres in there. Congress is not helping either. Third and fourth house are both ruled by the sun, with no planets in them. Don't pay attention to that part of fortune in this part of the chart. And so the third house is like all of the things like local transportation, infrastructure, things like that. And Biden is the sun in the chart, and he really wants to bring structure. They're trying to Saturn, but he's getting a lot of delays, and it's part of that ideal plan that didn't work out, the sun square to the Neptune. But he's still touting that it can really help, sun square Jupiter, but people are not really too sure if that's going to happen, sun square Moon. So you can see, and then it's the same thing with the fourth house, and in fact Virgo intercepted in the fourth house too, showing that I would not be surprised that if the economic problems start to drag the real estate market down too, and that families feel like they're under attack too, like that that new things aren't happening fast enough. Saturn is retrograde, and that his ideas did not work for them, square the Neptune, yet he's still trying to tell them that things are going to be okay, square Jupiter, but they feel inside that they're really not going to be okay, square the Moon. And then the Virgo intercepted in there is like showing, here's Mercury once again, the ruler of Virgo, in the 12th house, confused, not sure what to do about all that stuff. So very interesting. The Libra ruling the 5th house of entertainment. Very interesting that Venus is the ruler and strong in Taurus, but also in the 12th house. So I think the entertainment industry is going to get hit too, and watch a lot of, there's not going to be a lot of disposable income available to people in this quarter to spend. And that Venus is square Saturn, which really backs that up also. So very, very interesting there. I don't think that the entertainment industry is going to be able to, weather the tide of the economic downturn the next few months, because people need to spend their money on basic needs instead. And the 6th house is interesting too. Don't pay attention to the vertex, but the south node is in there. It's a Scorpio, so the Mars is ruling the 6th house. And look at Mars in this chart, conjunct Chiron and Eris. Just like in Aries, just a really angry, upset Mars. And the 6th house is the police and military and civil servants. And the south node in there, I think people are going to be really upset again with the police and the military and the civil servants. That's what's going on. That a lot of the things they did in the past are coming back to haunt them. And when you even look at what's going on right now in the Texas shooting, how the whole response to that by law enforcement is being covered up, and people are aware of this. It's not so it's the roosters are coming home here, on kind of stuff like that, it seems like. And so this quarter, I think, once again, we're going to see a lot of, the police on the defensive, people perceiving the police and civil servants and the military are actually hurting them. And that Congress is allowing them to hurt them too, because Congress is not doing anything about reforming a lot of that stuff. So, and then we go to the 7th house, and once again, just like the last two quarterly charts in the U.S., this is one of the places where I actually see some positive stuff. The Sag ruler gives it to Jupiter. This is the house of our allies again, and I think, this is probably in response to the Ukraine situation, that the allies are coming together and they do want to take broader and wider measures about that situation, and the people actually support it. The moon is conjunct the ruler Jupiter, so people actually, and in Aries too, people want to see them, hey, let's help these people out. So I do think we're going to see the U.S. with its allies moving forward on that situation in Ukraine. Then we go to the 8th house, and once again, international finance, banking, and corporations ruled by the 8th house. Saturn is the ruler of the 8th, 9th, and 10th houses in this chart, and we know Saturn is retrograde in a square to Venus, which is finances and money, and we've got Pluto, the planet of death, birth, rebirth, that whole process in the 8th house too. Once again, all that clearly showing International finance, banking, and corporations are going to be under extreme financial stress and downturn in this next quarter. And then in the ninth house there, that Saturn retrograde in the ninth is so telling of the judicial system in the U.S. and how so people are so frustrated that it's become like this two-sided idealistic thing that it never was meant to be. And people are really upset. They're upsetting a lot of relationships, the square to Venus, and just people not happy with and that will continue. People will not be happy with the way the Supreme Court is going, and they, it may be to the detriment of themselves. The 10th house also ruled by that Saturn, and notice Pisces intercepted in there, and Neptune in there too, which is the co-ruler of Pisces. This is the president's house, and it's showing his ideals are not making it. They've been intercepted. They've been, they were overly ideal. They didn't have enough solid detail in them, and therefore they're kind of lost at this point, and will continue to be so. The 11th house of Congress, troublemakers, disruptors. That's what that is showing. Aries is on the cusp, which means that Mars, which is under siege between Eris and Chiron, and right on the midpoint of Eris and Chiron is a very angry, upset, individualistic, can't get out of their own selfish thinking, or whatever, or whoever they're representing selfish thinking, and help the people out, which is what the people really want from them. So we're not going to get a lot of help from Congress again in the next quarter. And then this whole 12th house thing, we've talked about a lot already because of Mercury being in there and Venus being in there, but the North Node's in there too, and Uranus. And it's showing that a lot of these government institutions may be shaken up in the next quarter. Things like any kind of large government institution, prisons, hospitals, military industrial complexes, Uranus is in there, North Node is in there, things have to change. So the ruler is the Venus, which is strong in its rulership, but it's got that square to Saturn going on. So this chart really, to me, shows a lot of continuation of what's already we see happening. People very disappointed with the president, with the Congress, can't get help there. Very disappointed in the Supreme Court too. And we have an economic downturn nightmare going on right now. The 2nd and 8th houses are completely, under siege from what's going on in this. And I really think the best thing that's going to happen in this next quarter is, just continued strengthening of alliances with our foreign allies. That really is, the thing that's, and maybe one of the surprising results of Russia going into Ukraine is it's actually brought the people together. Okay, I've gone a long time because I've done almost a double level here. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Here's my email, matthue823@gmail.com. That's the best way to get me. The best way to support this free service I give is to pass it on to someone else the link, and that may be interested in astrology, and just pass it on. And then if you need a reading, or someone who needs a reading, I've been doing professional readings for over 20 years. Great references for that if you need references. But I do natal chart readings, which is what I suggest, so that you know the energy of your chart, because it's always with you, and that way you can take control of your life and have it more self-fulfilling by knowing the energy that's in it. But then every year around your birthday, you should get a predictive reading too. It should be a birthday present to yourself, really, so that you know what is going on this year and how that's affecting your chart. It's just like this weekly reading I give, except that I give it to you for your chart for a year. I highly recommend that once you know what your natal chart is. Relationship charts, children's charts, elections, if you're looking for the best timing of an event, like starting a business or a marriage or something like that, something very important that you want to have a good chart for. horary questions, especially ones that, you know, you're looking for a yes or no answer to something that you can't seem to make a decision about, you're feeling highly emotionally charged about, you know. Also fixed star readings for people looking at deeper soul purpose, astrocartography or relocation. If you're looking to move somewhere, we can look how that will affect your chart. All those are available, and like I said, just email me at matthe823@gmail.com. Remember, sign up on YouTube if you have a YouTube account for the Astrological Winds channel. It's also available on all kinds of podcasts. Just look it up. Also on Instagram, just look me up, or you can friend me on Facebook under Matthew Lawton, Lauten. It's a private account, and I only use it for astrology. So, but I do post the link on that every week. And once again, if you'd like to send a donation, my Venmo handle is at Matthew-Lawton, Lauten. I'm also up on PayPal, and I'm also up on Zelle. And, you know, no donation is too small, and I thank you if you have sent a donation in the past. That is very appreciated. It's always very touching, really is. All right, thanks, folks. Y'all have a happy solstice and a great summer in the northern hemisphere, a great winter in the southern hemisphere, and you know, use that sextile and trine at the beginning of this week. Are really great for, you know, planning opportunities, business opportunities with the Mercury, Jupiter, and deepening relationships with that Venus, Pluto. And then, you know, that rest of the asteroid stuff is just telling a story we're all involved in. There's not much we can do about it unless we all agree to change it all together. So, all right, I will see you all next week, and it will be the last week of June, and we will have a new moon next week also to talk about in Cancer. So that will be part of next week's lineup. All right, until then, this is Matt Lawton and the Astrological Winds channel signing off.